with strength of generations as our guides.
Welcome, everybody, to the Fan Boss Frequency. My name is Chris, and I'm your host. And if you listen to me, made it through another week. So,
And making it whole.
that's right. We're making every dream come true around here. At least we're trying to. So, from my family to yours, we're excited to have you here today. And let me tell you, I got a special show lined up for you guys today, man. We really delved in deep when it came to the details in particular. So, I can tell you right now, we've got top 10 reasons why people replace their cell phones. We're going to go ahead and review some of the shorts from last week. And then I'm going to share a two-part with you on how I took $1,000 and turned it into a paycheck, essentially. So there's a really interesting story about how, I transitioned out of one job into something else and how God kind of guided me through the path of getting to where I needed to be. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't land where I thought I was going to land. Crazy enough, right? But I landed where I needed to. So for me, it was a win all the way around. So tune in for that and much more on this episode of the Fan Boss Frequency. So with all the technology out there, people replace their phones on a regular basis. And if you're like me, we all say the same thing. Golly, it's so expensive. I'm not going to buy a new phone until I need one. And guess what? We got a new phone. So what are the reasons people have bought new phones? So let's go down the list. There's actually quite a few. So number 10 is going to be the battery ghost. You're at 80%. You send a text, you're down to 4%. Next thing you know, your light's blinking and you're done. Oh, well. Number 9. If you're on blood thinners like me, this is a bad combination. The spider web. You dropped it once. Now you're picking up glass out of your thumb. And I've actually hurt myself with a broken phone screen. Stupid enough, right? Number 8. I've run into this more times than I care to admit. The storage is full of nightmare. You take another photo, your kid's home run, or on my case, job sites, speakers, wires, whatever. The next thing you know, I've got 4,000 pictures of various odds and ends, and my phone's out of space. So I tried to avoid that by buying, cloud storage. And so now I've got 6 terabytes that I pay for every single month. Maybe one day I'll get my money back. Probably not. Number 7, the blue bubble versus green bubble. Social pressure is real, my friends. I'm telling you, blue folks hate to see the green bubbles, and the green bubbles think the people with the blue bubbles are nuts. They pay too much for their phones, or Apple's still spoon feeding them or whatever. So that's probably one of my favorite. And I carry both. I enjoy both, and they both serve a purpose to me, but I do carry both. So then we move on down to number 6. The camera arms race. This is hilarious to me because I can remember when we got a megapixel on a phone, and that was just amazing. I was in the phone game, as a matter of fact, when the first camera phone came out, and Sony Ericsson launched it. And it was a 2-piece product. It was a candy bar phone. You send in your proof of purchase on this little form, and they mailed you the little attachment. And it took the crappiest, grainiest picture I've ever seen in my entire life. So yeah, the camera arms race is real, and I think we're going to end up with like 15 cameras if we're not careful, because I think we're up to 3 now, 4, depending on what you're carrying. Number 5, the upgrade loop. Your carrier gives it to you for free, which we all know is a lie. And my favorite is trade this in, get up to $1,100 off your phone, yada yada. But if you don't stick around for the whole time, you wind up paying the full price for your phone, and away we go. Number 4, your kid needs a new phone. So instead of giving them a new phone, you give them your phone and then you upgrade. And if you're like me, which I used to do there was kind of a hierarchy in my family with the phone thing. It worked out great for a while until it didn't. And what I mean by that is, they wanted certain features, or, now the phones are too big and bulky. I want something smaller. And we just did that. And Now my youngest complains that his battery life doesn't last. Of course, this is the same kid who can get a sunburn because the screen's so bright, but I digress. Number 3, you get tired of buying the chargers and all of the things, and you put off buying a phone until you absolutely positively you're out. There's nothing left. And you got all the accessories, so you really don't want to upgrade. But you finally get to a point where your phone does not upgrade software anymore. There's no more support for this thing, and you're done. And believe it or not, my mom has actually done that once or twice. I'm like, Mom, Apple doesn't support that phone. And what do you mean they don't support it anymore? I'm like, they haven't supported the iPhone 5 in years. So, Number 2, the biggest reason people make the change is their companies go to something. They have a company phone. They'll say, for example, they're on iPhone. Their companies go Android. Well, they're used to the Android, so they go buy their own iPhones, and now they're carrying 2 phones, which unfortunately is what I do. And then the number 1 reason why people upgrade their new phones, because they buy into the lie that the cell phones are the most productive things on the planet. And they're not. 1,000%. If you think you're being productive with a cell phone, yeah, you're making some phone calls and some emails, some text messages and so forth. But the reality is, we always say productivity is the reason why. We buy into the productivity lie. And I do it too. I mean, like I said, I've got a Fold, which is an awesome device, by the way. And I've got an iPhone because it ties into my Apple ecosystem so very, very well. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting ways of looking at that. But for me personally, I personally think that, cell phones are a preference and a choice like everything else. So those are the top 10 reasons why people buy into the upgrade side of the world. So stick around for the next segment we've got on deck, where we delve into a review of our shorts from last week. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the Fan Boss Frequency. My name is Chris, and I'm your host today. And, when the world of running a fleet runs into dead air, every second of dead air is lost. You don't have time for your drivers to fumble with passcodes, wait for a dial tone, but the power of push-to-talk at DCCI is an instant, one-touch communication that keeps your team in sync and your productivity through the roof. No distractions, no drop calls, just results. Right now, for a limited time only, we're bringing you the ability to take control of your fleet with an exclusive offer. Get your first month of service for free when you mention promo code BOSS. For the month of March and April of 2026, mention promo code BOSS and get your first month of service for free. Stop hoping they get the text and start knowing they got the message. Visit dccipro.com today to get started and give them that promo code BOSS to get that free month. DCCI, experience the difference. So on the last week, we've kind of gone through our first round of shorts, and one of the formats I wanted to do when I developed this concept of this podcast was I wanted to kind of share my story a little bit, but I wanted to make sure that we were doing it in a way that would include anybody and everybody who wanted to listen. So the shorts during the week have been good because it's kind of like a quick hit, 5 to 10 minutes, no more than 10 minutes, but always at least 5 minutes of good information, sharing a story, something to kind of get your day started. And that was kind of a concept I liked because I've got a couple of guys that I listen to that they kind of do the shorts here and there. And what I'll do is sometimes I'll save up a week or so and listen to them while I'm cutting grass, or I'll listen to them, every morning for a period of time, or it just kind of depends. And I'll cycle through different podcasts, but I enjoy consuming content that way. So I look at what I do, and I know there are some people who can listen to a 3-hour podcast. I haven't made it that far yet, but I want to make sure that it's good stuff. So the long form on the Saturday, essentially, we do short forms Monday through Friday. We drop the long form on Saturday, and Sunday we take a break. So that's kind of the format that I was shooting for, and I think so far we've held pretty close to that. So the podcast drops, I think, at 5 a.m. every morning. So that's kind of the idea. Now, let's talk about the shorts. So this week we covered a variety of topics. Some of them were, how to get moving. I'll call it Motivational Monday. get moving when you don't feel like it. Your business doesn't care that you don't feel like it in a world where I've got to have the vibe. I've got to be in the mood. No, you don't. I promise you, if I, waited to be in the mood to do anything some days, I don't think I'd get anything accomplished. But my motivation is my clientele. My motivation is being able to go out and see results for my clients. It's knowing they have a problem and helping them resolve that issue. And we run into that all the time. And that's our job as problem solvers, is making sure that we're giving good quality solutions. So that was, kind of the first round of Monday, that bit of let's get out there and make it happen and, dig deep and find out. And usually the 5-minute rule works really well for me. I've had to break out the 5-minute rule quite a bit lately. And the 5-minute rule is quite simply, if I have a task I don't want to do, I'll get into it and give it 5 minutes. And if I'm just not feeling it, it's not going well, then I'll take a step back and we'll table that for another time. 99 times out of 100, I will step into that task and complete said task, because it doesn't even take me 5 minutes in most cases. But for whatever reason, we dread certain things and we build it up in our mind. And I don't know why we're guilty of it, but I seem to be really good. Oh, I really don't want to do that. I'll do it later. I'll knock it out later. I'll just push that to the edge. And, at the end of the day, that's not healthy. Getting things done is important, but spending time, getting them done the right way the first time matters. So whether you feel it or not, that's the 5-minute rule that I always stick with. The second round that I've kind of experienced this week a little bit, my wife is gearing up to go on vacation with my mother-in-law. And my mother-in-law has recently, she's been battling breast cancer. And so she had her final treatment and all is clear. And by the grace of God, she is doing very well. And so far she's cancer-free. So in celebration, she's going to Disney. So what that means is there's a lot of things to do when you have company coming and you're going to be gone for, 10, 12 days, whatever the case may be. So we're having to split time again. And so we're making sure that the work is getting done at work and things are at home. So we're kind of scattered right now. So that communications piece absolutely comes into play. Being able to communicate effectively and say what you mean and mean what you say really comes into play when you're not in the same building, when you're not in the same office. So this week has really been an exercise in that communications piece. And that's when we really take advantage of, our text messaging, following with emails, telephone calls, things of that nature. So that's one thing that we're really good at. And with her being out of town for a couple of weeks, that's going to make my life very easy, knowing that she has access to what she needs while she's out of town. And the beauty part is we're used to vacationing and working. So, and we can do what we're doing anywhere in the world, really, as long as we have an internet connection and telephone. I mean, I can make phone calls and do all kinds of fun things. I've got people to do installation work, and that's what Skylar's for. I mean, he does a great job with it. So we've really been able to kind of exercise that communication this week and work together to get some things done. And that putting things off to the last minute thing really comes into play when you're taking a trip, because it's not that you do it on purpose. I find that we do that. Putting it off is kind of like, I'll take care of that. I've got something else that's more pressing. And then you look around, you're like, oh crap, I really need to take care of something else. But, now that's kind of, the consequences of my actions, shall we say, have come home to roost. So this week has just been, let's prioritize and make sure we're taking care of everything. So I'm super excited that she's going to get to go to Disney. That's one of her favorite places to go. I grew up in Orlando. I went to Disney at least once a year while we lived down there. And as I got older and worked there, I went even more frequently. But I always enjoy the time that I spent going to Disney. I think they're doing Universal as well. So that'll be a great time had by all. My mother-in-law will be here for a couple of weeks. Actually, more than that. She'll be here for a couple of months. She's visiting until Christopher's graduation. So I might be able to coax her in front of the microphone, and I'll have to be mindful of the stories that she shares. She and I have gone back for many, many moons. I've been married 20 years. So there's a lot of stories there. There's absolutely a lot of stories there. And she and I really got close after my heart attack, and she came down and hung out with me for a couple of weeks because apparently I couldn't be left alone by myself. I don't know why, but she was a blast, man. She's like, I know you're tired of being in the house. Where you want to go? And I'm like, we can go. She's like, yeah, let's go. Where you want to go? Now, she wouldn't let me drive, but that's okay. So she kind of shuttled me around town a little bit, and we go out and just getting out of the house and spread my wings a little bit. That was awesome. And she took good care of me, made sure, I had what I needed and I was all right. And we really bonded in a very special way. And that's why her going through this cancer has been a little different for me. Let me tell you, man, I mean this with all the love in my heart, but she is one of the meanest old biddies on the planet, and you ain't going to get her down, and she knows what time it is, and she will handle business. And she does it out of a place of love. It's not malice at all. There's no malice and no ill will, no bad intention whatsoever. But she's very protective of her family, and, she's very much a, hey, let's do what we got to do and get it done. But this cancer really, it took its toll on her. And I saw, how it really affected, her state of mind and her well-being. I think it really kind of, cancer's nasty. I've watched it take some of the biggest and baddest and strongest down. My wife's grandmother, she's one of them, man. She's another one. She never slowed down, never stopped. And, she beat cancer multiple times, and it finally ended up getting her in the end. So, to God be the glory. I'm so glad that my mother-in-law is on the other side of this right now, and I'm praying that we stay cancer-free. And I'm really excited to get to hang out with her and spend some time with her. So, I'm really looking forward to that. And, this time with Christopher and I, we're going to be bachelors kind of for a couple of weeks. And, Hope's like, I'm not worried about the house being in rough shape when I get back. I'm like, all right, that's fine. I'm not going to tear her house up. I promise you. It's going to be immaculate when she gets back. I don't want to hear it. I don't want any foolishness. I don't want any tomfoolery. I want to be like, all right, good. I'm home, and I don't want her to stress about coming home. So, we'll work together and do what it takes to get the job done. Like I said, I'm super excited, like I said, to have this opportunity to get to spend time with my mother-in-law, and, then Christopher and I get to spend some bachelor time together, as it were. So, it's going to be a good time had by all, and I'm sure we'll have some fun doing a couple of, segments here and there, and just kind of going out. And I think they've got a concert while she's out of town too. So, there's all kinds of fun things going on. But at the end of the day, we're going to, get together as a team and work it out. So stick around for the next episode. I'll tell you how I turned $1,000 into a paycheck. More after this. Thank you for holding. Your call is very important to us. Yeah, right. That's what that song reminds me of, though. It's kind of chill. Just kick back and relax with a drink in my hand. So, all right, now the moment you've all been waiting for. Just kidding. All right, so the last segment, we're going to wrap it up with, I don't know if it's really a motivational or a story or life lessons learned. I don't really know. But, so back in I think it was 2018, I worked at Mercedes-Benz selling commercial vans and, cars and whatever else. But my primary focus was commercial sales. And I liked that job because I was always in the move. It was up, it was down. It was, if you like competition and not being on the move, oh, you'll love this. So we had a general manager there. He's like an OG car guy. His dad owned dealerships. He's like, this is an OG general manager, through and through. And once I figured out how to work with him, like, he was cool. But he's just like, he's so intense. Like, every aspect of what we did was just nuts. And so we had a lot of fun, and he parted ways while I was there. And, it was kind of like, well, we were all kind of flying blind there for a while. But long story short, I wound up separating. And one of the things that I knew how to do and do pretty well was roadside assistance. And the beauty part about that is you need a jack and a four-way, which I always have, and a lockout kit, which I've had for years, and a little jump pack and some jumper cables, and away we go, and some and a fuel can. And it's pretty simple. And so I had my 99 Suburban, and I started doing my little ads on the thing and sign up for all the motor clubs, and away we go. And so the secret of motor clubs are, let's say if you got insurance like USAA, and you wind up with a flat tire and you call the 800 number, they call somebody locally like me to come help you out. And that's cool. But I get paid for that. It's not bad. But remember, I'm running this from my home out of my vehicle, and that's it. So my overhead costs are basically my expenses. And I already had a cell phone, so, who cares about that? And then, I already had a computer and internet and all that. So it was really like a no-brainer for me. So the long and the short of it all was I came up with this idea. So I'm going to do roadside assistance again. And, I was kind of, in between what do I really want to do. But when I left Mercedes-Benz, they were transitioning to a new system, and it really wasn't a good fit for what I wanted. And we had, different expectations, shall we say. And so I said, all right, well, that's cool. It's time to move along. And so I left the new general manager. She's an absolute sweetheart. I still, I see her on Facebook from time to time. We talk, from time to time, but she was really good to me. And she said, I understand why, you're making a move. And she's like, it makes perfect sense. I've been in your shoes. I understand. You're always welcome back here. No problem. So again, that roadside thing was just kind of calling me. I was like, oh, that's be easy money. And so I went and talked to my grandmother about it, and she and I had a long conversation. She was always down to help me no matter what. And I mean, she would give me anything and everything I ever asked for. And she was so good to me because she believed in me. And I think everybody needs somebody in their life to really stand behind them and say, hey, I got you. No matter what, I'm going to see you through. And she always, made me think about things. And, life wasn't always easy. And she would tell me harsh truths. But one thing she never did, she never cursed at me, ever. I never heard her swear at all. I don't think hell and damn were considered cuss words in her world. And damn was about as far as it went. And usually it was in a biblical situation. So she never really cursed, and she never yelled at me. And, she could say one statement that would just make me feel about an inch tall. And that's, I'm very disappointed in you. That's the one thing she could say. She never had to hit me. She could have run over me with a car. I would have rather her run over me with her car than say, I'm very disappointed in you. So I never wanted to disappoint her. So I always believed in giving everything that I had, leave it all out on the field every single time I do anything, because I'm not going to quit. I didn't want to have to go back to her and say, hey, look, I tried this, but it ain't working out. I never wanted to have to do that. So I was over at her house for whatever reason. We're chit-chatting. And she said, you know what? She said, I'm going to give you a little seed money. I want you to take this $1,000, and I want you to open a roadside assistance business. I know you can do it. She's like, I know you know how to do it. The Lord knows you've done it before. And she's like, and make a living. That's how I'm going to give you. It's okay. So I went home, my little pencil and paper, and, sat down my notebook. I'm like, all right, I got $1,000. What do I have? Well, I had some of my tools already, but I had other things that I needed, and that was fine. And so I kind of made a wish list and a want list. And I said, all right, as I build and grow, I'll add more to it. But I said, what do I have to have tomorrow? Well, I need a business license. I need insurance, and I want to look legit. So I had to get some magnets for my truck. Like that's always step one. And so that's what I did. I went online, made a little logo and this and that, and away we go. So I started off, I had a little bit of an advantage this time I didn't have back in the day. You'll hear me use a term called guerrilla marketing, which is that's really like grassroots, like really getting out there, shaking hands and kissing babies, as it were. And that's something I had to do when I was in the towing business years ago. And I'll share, there's actually an episode early on season 1 that talks about my experience with that. But this roadside assistance deal was different because I couldn't buy a tow truck. I couldn't afford anything outside of, I really just had to have a shoestring budget and figure out how to make it work. So I didn't have to grow a market like I did before. I made some flyers and all that, had some business cards and the whole nine. But here's what I didn't have to do. I didn't have to hustle like I did before. I used social media. I built a Facebook page and started learning more and more about marketing and social media marketing and how to get into local groups and things like that. So I would throw out, I came up with a name, Coosa River Roadside, because we live in the Wetumpka area. Coosa River was big, and, that was a nice little landmark. But anyway, so Coosa River Roadside was it, man. And so I put it out there and started kind of marketing and promoting it and this, that, and the other. And so I had a pretty good thing going. And then I met a guy that did towing. And he could do service calls, but he was kind of dwindling his company down from having multiple trucks, and he was really trying to simplify his life. And so we made a deal. I gave him all my tows, and he gave me all the service work. Bing, bang, boom, that was it. And if I got out there on the scene, and it was just something that couldn't be done, and they had to have a tow, call Brother Donnie, what you got, man? Hey, look, this is what I need done. Can you help me out? And he always did. And the times he couldn't help me out, it was like, he was like on vacation out of state, things like that. But for the most part, we had a pretty good thing going, and we built and grew. We did amazing. And I paid bills and had money in my pocket. And I mean, I ran a legitimate business and treated it like a business and gave it, the 9 to 5 and answered the phones and did everything, professionally, website, the whole nine. But I remember I learned a lot with the marketing piece using, the social media stuff and Google and things of that nature. And I never once paid for an ad. Not one time did I pay for an ad. But the takeaway from that was I needed to learn how to get in front of people when times got tough, when they were in a pinch and they needed help. And so I really started kind of turning into Google and understanding Google and how Google worked. And at this time, this was pre-COVID. So, SEO is a big thing and getting in there and being on the first page was huge. And of course, as soon as you launch your website and get it out there, everybody under the sun's like, we can get you on the front page of Google. How about front page of Google? Google. I'm like, oh my gosh, really? And the truth of the matter is there's no magic to it. I mean, there's not. There at the time, there was certain things you had to do, certain, games you had to play, and you had to play by the rules. And it was just that simple. And so I took so many master classes, as they were, on how that worked. And I learned the internet. It's a weird thing to say, but I learned the internet. There's a couple of guys out there that I will absolutely give credit to. Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, as most people know him. He has mastered the art of online, period. Marketing on the internet. He's an amazing guy when it comes to all that. But that's one take on it. And then another guy that I've dealt with over the years, Hardcore Closer. And I've ran into Ryan Stewman years ago when I was trying to master the art of, being a sales professional, not just a guy that was hired to do sales, but being an actual sales professional. And he shared so much about being on camera, being on podcasts, doing this and doing that. He said, these are the things you need to do because these are the things that are going to make you money. People are always going to be looking at, they're looking around, they're looking to make decisions. And one of the things that people say all the time and that I hear a lot is, who's on TV? People with authority are on TV. Who's on the radio? People with authority are on the radio. And that's the kind of stuff that is true. And, if I see somebody on TV and I see them in real life, I'm like, oh, wow, look, that's such and such from, the local news. Or I'm good friends with a guy who's a radio legend here in town. And it's cool because I've gone out and had lunch with this guy and we'll chit chat and he's just a regular Joe. But to me, I'm like, this guy really, he did what I always wanted to do. I wanted to be a radio disc jockey. He's already been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and retired from it. Now he's on a second career and he's living a good life. You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny when you see things like that. And so at the end of the day, all I'm trying to do is, make it happen. And so I took that opportunity of that little bit of that little nugget that he was giving me. And I became an expert, and I would do videos. If you go out there and look up Coosa River Roadside on Facebook, I'm sure some of them are still out there, but things about checking your oil and tire pressure. And I would, especially when it was cold out, for every 10 degrees, you lose 1 PSI or whatever the magic is, whatever the number was. I was there to educate people. When we had terrible storms blowing through, tornadoes, fill in the blank, I was Johnny on the spot saying, hey, look, this is coming through. And I would use one of the local weather guys who's on the, I can't remember the name of the radio group now, but anyway, he had his own little weather group thing. So I would use his stuff with his permission, of course. And, I just started kind of linking into all these different things and it put me in front of a lot of people. And again, I go out there and, lock or do a lockout, get somebody's keys out of the car at the casino and charge, $125. And you're like, golly, how many times can you do that? You'd be surprised on a weekend. I'd do that 3, 4, 5 times. And I mean, my goal was, as silly as it sounds, I was just trying to do $500 a day. And, oh my gosh, that's lofty. That's $500. That's outrageous. You'll never do that. Well, the truth of the matter is I was able to make a pretty good living and not work very hard. The caveat was I didn't know if my phone was going to ring and I had no idea what my schedule was going to be. But what I was able to do was, piece it together. And I would tell myself at night before I go to bed, I'm like, hey, listen, you need to be aware that somebody's going to call you during the night and need help. You need to be ready to answer that phone. And that's why I could go from, and next thing you know, the phone will start ringing and, I'm like, all right, cool. What you got? One thing leads to the other and, I'm on the phone. Where are you at? You're doing what? Okay. Yeah, I know where you're at. I'm coming for you. no problem. Go ahead and send me a pin. And like I said, I made a living for that for a long time. And then COVID hit. Governor Ivey shut the state down. And when I tell you, it's hard to play in the auto game when there's no autos on the road. It got hard real quick. So at the end of the day, what we had to do is, I had to pivot. And the pivot there was, I got to figure out something else. What am I going to do? So I had some money in the bank and I was fine with that. So what I did was I said, I'm going to learn everything I can about marketing, past, present, and future. And that was around the time TikTok kind of hit the scene. And that's when shorts started hitting the scene for sure. So I set out on a mission to learn, and I did. I learned an awful lot, and I really enjoyed the things that I learned along the way when it came to that particular aspect of my business marketing. And I think I like the marketing piece more than I actually like doing the work sometimes. But I mean, it was an opportunity for me to kind of turn my brain off. I had money in the bank, and I said, all right, when this is over with, what am I going to come back with? What is going to be my key takeaway from all this? Because it matters. It absolutely matters. And, during COVID, I took full advantage of the time that I had to learn new things, to master my skills and to hone my craft when it came to the marketing side. And I would try different things, and I was able to use different social media platforms to kind of see what worked best for me. But at the end of the day, I had nothing but time on my hands, and, money was in the bank. But, when you're not bringing in new money, old money runs out eventually. So, the way I solved that problem, I started looking at other ways to make revenue. And I had a really unique opportunity kind of come down the way. And it was kind of surprising because I really wasn't expecting to kind of make a career move the way that I did. But I did. You want to hear more about that? Stick around. Welcome back to our final segment. And, man, I really hope you guys have enjoyed what we've done so far today. I take a lot of time kind of putting these together, and I'm still learning. I'm not a broadcasting guy. I'm not a podcast expert. I'm not a marketing expert, although I did stay at a Holiday Inn one time. But so, yeah, when the things started falling apart with COVID, and, like I said, I wasn't starving to death, but I was certainly, counting my chips, and we were being very frugal of our resources because we had no idea how long that was going to last. How long was that going to be a thing? We didn't know. So the long and the short of it all was we need to be good stewards of our resources and figure this thing out. And so I bought a tow truck. I saved up enough money to buy a tow truck and started running some of those contracts. And it was fine. I made some money with it. I mean, I wasn't burning the woods down or anything, but I was doing all right, making a couple bucks. And my dad was kind enough to give me cash money, $100 bills, to fund that little venture. And he's like, if it makes sense, it makes sense. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But this is a gift to you. And I said, wow. So I found the truck. We bought it. Tow truck. Man, tow business wasn't great. It was very competitive. And I will say I could run after hours all day long because nobody answers their phone around here after 5 o'clock. The only problem was I had a little wrecker truck. Didn't have a flatbed, and my little wrecker truck would only do 55 miles an hour max speed. So if I wound up on the interstate with a whole car hooked on the back of this thing, we're going to be doing about 45, 50 miles an hour, and I was going to be making a lot of people upset. So it really limited a lot of things that I could do. So I wasn't really doing what I wanted to with it. Like I said, it was bought and paid for, putting money in it. It was constantly something. And so I said, I'm going to throw this thing on the web and see what happens. So a couple months later, I threw it on the interwebs for way more than I paid for it. And I got my money back out and said, all right, thank God. Sent it on down the road. That was on a Tuesday. The guy came, picked it up, handed me a stack of hundos, and away he went. My phone rang that Saturday. And it was my old boss from when I used to work at the old, one of my other jobs when I first got into the radio business. And he said, I'm kind of going through some things right now. I need some help, kind of shutting the business down. You want to get together and have a conversation. And so I did. And like I said, we were coming from an industry that used to pay us really good money to, there was just no business to be had. And a lot of folks, like I said, took advantage of taking care of their cars during the pandemic, and it didn't really go a whole lot of places. And a lot of people shifted to the, work from home model, and you kind of get where this is going. So, our phones used to ring all the time, and they went from ringing all the time to just wasn't happening. So we were still taking the calls. I was still working, part-time doing the radio stuff and kind of figuring some of this marketing stuff out. And, like I said, I had a lot of irons in the fire. And when I tell you, I prayed about it, I was like, God, I got a lot going on right now. I'm not really doing a whole lot with any one thing, but I feel like I'm going to be hitting a breakthrough soon. Like, what is it? And this was not a time that I was going to church. I didn't have a church home. I knew that God was speaking to me. He put it on my heart. He's like, you're going to have a breakthrough. And it's going to be hard, but you're going to come out the other side. And I felt it in my blood. And so that's when I kind of started working with DCCI. And the irony was I was kind of, brought on to, shutter it up, close it down. And when I started looking at the products and services, I'm like, dude, we can make some money with this. Like, there's money to be made in this industry. And a lot of people write two-way radios off. I'm here to tell you, if you got a group of folks that need it, you need to be talking to me. If you don't have two-way radios, let us help you with that. If you have stuff and you're not happy with it, let us help you with that too. But it's a huge industry. And a little secret, it's only getting bigger. It's only getting bigger. Now the mom and pop shops are selling out to the big boys, and that's problematic. But there's an interesting shift going on in the two-way radio business right now. And it's those big shops that gobbled up the little shops haven't really been scaling their businesses. Whoops. The companies that they're representing, that they're looking for, their vendors, they're not supporting the needs of those radio shops. And so now it's the snake eating the tail, and one problem leads to another. And there's a mass exodus when it comes to certain people in this industry. And so what's happening is the shift is only getting bigger. And so certain companies have invested a lot of time, money, and resources into a specific aspect of our technology. And that technology is about to be null and void. It's coming sooner rather than later. The important thing to remember, and the beauty part is I have nothing to do with that side of the industry. So I'm just sitting back kind of like, yep, I didn't want to play in that sandbox, and there was a reason for it. And part of it is I don't believe in the race to the bottom. I'm not going to get into the politics and all that. You'll notice one thing I don't really discuss on here and won't is politics. And there's a reason for that. Politics and religion are the two things I refuse to debate. I believe what I believe, and nobody with a meme or a text message or a chat or a video is really going to change my mind on those beliefs. But we're seeing this shift and this change right now within our industry. And when I tell you it's an exciting time to be where we're at, we are at a very interesting crossroads. And the things that take place over the next 24 to 36 months will shape the future of our industry. Giants will fall, smaller companies are going to grow, and amazing things are about to happen. And when I tell you, it's kind of like when Amazon started selling books on the internet, and they're like, this guy, books, gee, They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They still sell books, which was kind of their bread and butter and how they got in the industry. But they pivoted with the changes in the world. And I think what's interesting about our industry is we have people who are kind of at that retirement age, and they're just like, nah, and their kids don't want to get into it. So like, nah, they turn their nose up at it and they sell. And I see it happen time and time again. We're actually friendly with a guy out of Georgia. He bought his dad out. And he's like the best thing he ever did. Nobody else wanted it. I think he was like one of 6 kids, if I'm not mistaken. But it's just really funny how, you see an industry, and like we're in a very interesting time in radio world right now where a lot of things are starting to collide. A lot of data points are starting to connect. A lot of different types of technology are blending into what everybody's using right now. And so when you look at traditional land mobile radio, VHF, UHF, 700, 800 megahertz, tie that into LTE into video into telematics back into multi-mode devices, and now you have multiple points of getting the same type of information to check, correct, and make sure you know what you think you know. And by the way, all this is being recorded at light speed, and then it's being analyzed by AI, only to make it better for where we need to be. So the point is, with all of this, that $1,000 investment, I could have never dreamed would have put me back in the driver's seat of owning my own business in a much different way, working with somebody who I had a lot of respect for, and had been in the business for a long time. And when he was ready to retire, he was ready to retire, and I respect that. Anybody who puts in 40 years in any industry, man, they deserve a break. So, like I said, I think we kind of landed in a really good time, and our timing couldn't have been better. And my oldest son and I, Skylar, we talk about the future a lot. And I just recently went through a health scare, and I really learned then that the legacy I leave behind is up to me. But I've got somebody who wants to pick the ball up and run with it. I've got somebody who understands what we've got here. So, you may not get to where you want to be. You may have one end game in mind when you start. It's like the roadside thing. My end game with that was to build it out and to build a network throughout the state of Alabama, if not the Southeast, of people who want to do what I do. People who like doing, tire changes, jump starts, fuel deliveries, and lockouts, and feed these guys and build a network of folks that'll go out there and just get the work done. By the way, if you want to make money in Montgomery, Alabama, open up a tire change business. That's all you have to do is change tires. Nobody, no towing company, no service, nobody wants to do tire changes. I did them all the time and did them with a smile on my face because I could name my own price. Now, I didn't gouge anybody, but the point I'm driving at was I looked around. Yeah, nobody wants to do that. Nobody likes to answer the phone after 5 o'clock either. And a lot of folks hate working on weekends. So that my original plan was to take advantage of all that information and build it out and take mechanics and things like that. People who wanted to work on nights on the weekends. That was the whole point. And like I said, when it kind of fell apart and I had to pivot, there was a lot of prayer involved. Like, man, if this don't pick up, we're going to do something. I worked for DCCI for the first 3 months out of paycheck. And that was my choice. That was my choosing. And that was my understanding. And I did it because I wanted to learn and understand the business. I also had the opportunity to walk away at any moment. I didn't have to be there. But I felt like I wanted to invest my own time and see what the business was all about and really learn and understand. And I did learn a lot in a very short period of time. So I say all that to say this. You may not get to where you want to go in your mind, but you'll be surprised if you get started doing something with an end game in mind. At least you're going to make it somewhere. The problem is if you don't start ever, you're never going to get anywhere. So at some point, whether it's right or wrong, you got to start. My mother, she used to say this really funny statement. She says, the roads are littered with squirrels that were full of indecision. I said, say that one more time. She said, the road is littered with squirrels that were full of indecision. She's not wrong. So whether it's right or wrong, get out there and do something. You can't fix something if you don't try. You never know. You may swing for the stars and make it. So stick around as we wrap up with our closing thoughts. Welcome back to the final portion of the Fan Boss Frequency. My name is Chris, and I hope you've enjoyed spending time with me today. Maybe you've learned a little bit, maybe not, who knows. But one thing I will commit to is making sure that I give you a short episode every day of the week and a long form on Saturdays, and I'm here to get the job done, and hopefully you can learn something. If you'd like to leave a message on our voice line, you can call 855-4-podcast. That's 855-4-podcast. And leave a message. We want to hear your feedback and see what you like about the show, what you don't like, what you'd like to hear. If there's something we can do to make the show better, we're all about that for sure. You can find me on Facebook under Chris Black. You can also look up my business at DCCI. And if you have any questions about two-way radios, GPS tracking, dash cameras, or want to learn more about who we are and what we do, visit dccipro.com. That's dccipro.com. I really appreciate your support. Make sure you like, follow, and share with a friend. We really like to kind of build this show as best we can. So until next time, you guys stay safe, and we'll see you on the Fan Boss Frequency. Goodbye. So if you want an insight into my life and what I deal with on a regular basis, my son and I were working on a project the other day, and we happened to be firing up the old podcast equipment. And this is just one of the many odd conversations we had that day. Take a listen. So we're sitting around here testing the audio equipment, and Skylar's like, "What's with all the alarms?" And he assumes it's for my phone game.
It probably.
So what are you
is.
playing right now?
First of all, I'm not playing anything. I'm managing a village of digital people. Let's start with that.
Where would
You
they
would
be
think-
without Chris? You know,
You would think, though, the alarm would be for like an important meeting, a call,
I have those
a
too.
contract
No.
he's got to turn
1,000%. I have
not at
those
all.
too.
not at all.
And say, like, I know that ingot takes 2 hours to bake, so I go over here to my alarm and set a 2-hour alarm.
Do you have digital diabetes? Is Inga baking for you all the time?
It's where you take the things that I mine and the mystery mine, and then you turn them into like gold bars or platinum or whatever you can actually use them for stuff. So look, see, I'm not just, making things happen in real life. Like when I started there, I had 3 corn plots and a cow. That's all I had. There was no, what do you call them, the housing and all that kind of stuff. Like there was none of that. So just kind of, and now I'll say this about that.
It's a disturbed individual here.
Well, you got to know how it started. So when my brother was in the hospital before he passed away, this is what I did at night, because I would always stay up, like, in case the phone rang and stuff. I couldn't sleep. And so when I was sitting in my chair, and I'm like, oh, what's this? So 11 o'clock, and I was like, I'll just do a couple rounds, and I'll, Well, next thing you know, I had a cow shed. I had chickens. I went from 3 little things to farm on to, like, 7. And I was like, well, I'll get to a stopping point, and I never got to a stopping point. So then, because all the things, like when you grow the wheat only takes like 3 minutes.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
How much money have you spent on this game?
Not a dime. I do not spend money on things I cannot put my hands on. So that is a true story. You can check my credit card statements. I have not spent a dime on this game. And I've done it all for free, but when I go look at other people's that have been doing this for like ever, they're at like level 76. I'm like, The only difference is like they have the rubber factory, and I'm like, I'm not spending 9,000 coins on some stupid like a rubber factory. I mean,
I have another question.
What's your follow up?
Would you agree or disagree that time is money?
Oh, 1,000%.
And how much time have you spent in this?
So
Here it comes. See what happened was.
I would say conservatively, I probably spend about an hour a day throughout the day. It really is a good way. Like if I'm in the middle of something, I'm just like,
It's mental therapy.
it really is.
Yeah,
Like
okay.
I'll step away for about 5 minutes and I'll come back with a different perspective. I'm like, oh, that's,
Okay. We'll pivot to that. Mental therapy. You and your digital diabetes.